Hey guys, it's Mr. Mandry again. Here with another example of our patterns questions with mixed numbers or with fractions. So in this case, again, we're working with mixed numbers just like we did in the last video. Hopefully if that one was a little bit difficult for you, going over another one together, hopefully will help you out. So in this one, we don't have a word problem. We're just looking at finding these three missing numbers here. Oh, this time our numbers are missing in the sequence, but we're going to go about doing this in the same way that we did prior, okay? So hopefully remember from the last video, the first thing we really need to do is go ahead and try to find a rule, okay? So I'm just going to write down here rule so we have a place to record what our rule is. Hopefully we remember our rule has two parts to it. One of those parts is an operation, and that operation will either be add or subtract. And the second part to our rule is going to be a number. Okay, so to go ahead and figure out how, to figure out whether we're going to be adding or subtracting for our rule, we're going to be again looking at our sequence from left to right and seeing if these numbers as we go along, are they increasing, are they decreasing? They may be a little bit difficult to figure out just by looking at these first few because the denominators in these mixed numbers are not the same. But if we come all the way over here to these last two fractions, they no longer have a whole number with them, right? If we take a look at the first fraction, we have a 1 there for with a mixed number. Here we do not have any mixed numbers. Again, there's that line. I'm just going to erase all of this stuff here. So that's showing us that they're decreasing this time, right? So again, having this mixed number in the beginning and then not having a mixed number towards the end over here is showing us that they're decreasing. So for our rule, if we notice numbers are decreasing or going down, that means we're going to be subtracting. Okay, so I'm going to put for subtraction as the operation that goes along with our rule. Remember, if they were increasing or getting larger, these numbers, these mixed numbers or fractions, then it would be addition, right? So now all we need to do is figure out the number that goes with our rule. And remember, to do that, we're going to choose any two numbers that are next to each other. So in this case, and again, I usually like to choose the first two. I can choose the first two, or I can choose any two that are right next to each other, right? So I could choose this one and this one if I'd like, or maybe I want to choose that 1 and 9/16 and this 1 and 3/8. I can choose that as well. It will get the same number when we go ahead and use those numbers. So what I'm going to do is, again, find the difference between those two numbers. And if you remember that operation that we're going to use is subtraction, but difference means that we're finding how far apart these two numbers are from each other. That's what we're going to go ahead and put in here as the number for our rule. So I'm going to go ahead and do that work on the side over here. So remember, when we're looking at our fractions or mixed numbers, we're going to go ahead and put the largest one on top when we're finding the difference. Okay, so I know because they're getting smaller, that 1 and 9/16, that one is the larger mixed number. Oh, that's taking up too much space. So that's the larger mixed number. I'm going to put that one on top. And then I'm going to go ahead and put the 1 and 3/8 underneath that. That's the smaller mixed number. Remember, we're finding the difference, so we're subtracting these two mixed numbers with each other. Just like the last video, we need to have common denominators, and if you have to refer back to adding and subtracting videos that are already posted in the classroom, you can go ahead and do that to find your common denominators. But we are going to be using 16 as our common denominators. So now that we have the same common denominator or the same denominators, right, they're both 16, I can go ahead and do the subtraction over here of just my fractions, right? So 9/16 minus 6/16, that's going to give us 3/16. And then once I do that, I'm going to go ahead and take a look here at my whole numbers, and 1 minus 1 is 0. So I don't have to put the 0 in here. I could, right? But it's really not necessary to say don't have anything there. So the 3/16, that's going to go ahead over here for part of our rule, right? So now we have both parts of our rule. We have subtraction, and we know that our rule is to subtract 3/16. I'm just going to go ahead and erase this work. That way I have room to add some more work in as we move along. So hopefully you remember that when once we find the rule, we can use that rule to figure out what these missing numbers are for this sequence. So again, I'm going to take my rule here, which is subtract 3/16. I'm going to do that rule, apply that rule or do that rule to the number before the blank, right? So again, we're looking for this missing number here. I'm going to go ahead and do that rule to the mixed number that comes in the sequence before the one we're looking for. So we're going to take that 1 3/16, and we're going to subtract, because that's what our rule is telling us to do, subtract 3/16 from it. Okay, which this again works out nicely because they both have the same denominator. And really, when we look at our fractions here, we have the same fraction, right? 3/16 minus 3/16. We don't have anything. Again, we could put 0/16 if we want, but we don't need to. And then we'll subtract here in our ones place. 1 minus 0 is 1. So really, we don't need this 0/16 here. We can go ahead and get rid of it and say that we have 1 after our subtraction. So we're going to go ahead and plug that in on our sequence in the first missing number in our sequence. Again, I'm going to get rid of this so I can go ahead and continue to do work. Now we need to find out this next missing number over here. So just like we did before, we are going to use the rule to go ahead and apply it or do it to that number before the next number we're looking for, right? So this 1 comes before the next blank or missing number in our sequence. So we need to set up that subtraction again, because that's what the rule is telling us to do, is to subtract. So we have 1 whole, and we're going to be subtracting 3/16 from it. Remember, we can go ahead and regroup, right? I can't take 3/16 away from nothing, right? There's nothing in our fractions place value here. So I need to come over here to my 1 and really change that over into 16/16. And then I can continue to subtract, right? Again, I have common denominators. So 16 minus 3 is 13/16. Okay, so that one is what we're going to plug in the next line here as 13/16. And then we're going to repeat that process one more time, right? Take that rule and we're going to apply it or do it to the number before the last blank or last missing number for our sequence. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. We have 13/16 and we need to subtract 3/16. And so far, this has been pretty nice for us. We haven't had to continuously find a common denominator. It's been 16 all the time. So this one was slightly easier than the one that we did before. So here again, common denominators are 16. So 13/16 minus 3/16 is 10/16. And just like we discussed prior, this question does not say you have to put this in simplest form. So we could go ahead and use 10/16. But if we are going to go ahead and put this into simplest form, we would get 5/8. Okay. Again, if you're unsure about simplifying, if you go back into the Google Classroom under the 4th grade fraction refreshers, there's a video there showing you how to simplify. All right, hopefully that helped.